This year, streaming services have not been pulling their punches with the original shows being released on their platform. Stranger Things just put out an insane season that might just be its best season yet. And the same goes for The Boys Season 3, which has some of the craziest jaw-dropping moments in it. And while I haven't seen them yet, shows like Barry and Better Call Saul are getting raved reviews from fans and critics alike. And that's not even to mention incredible shows like Succession, House of the Dragon, and The Rings of Power. There's obviously one streaming service that I haven't mentioned yet, and that's Disney Plus. And that's mainly because the shows on Disney Plus are getting absolutely blown out of the water by every other show that's being released, basically. Marvel and Star Wars are two of the biggest IPs in the world, and I'm a big fan of both. But the Marvel and Star Wars series aren't using the TV show model to their benefit. They're basically writing movie scripts, adding a bunch of filler, and then chopping them up into 40-minute episodes. This has resulted in lackluster content that feels more like a chore if you want to keep up with your favorite franchise. And this really shouldn't be happening when the biggest media conglomerate in the world is making content for the biggest IPs in the world. And before diving into what makes the Disney Plus shows so disappointing, let's look at a show that continues to impress with the previously mentioned Stranger Things. On paper, Stranger Things 4 really shouldn't work. There's so many characters and so many different plot lines. The show bounces from Hopper in Russia, Lucas with the jocks, Eleven trying to adapt to a normal life, Joyce and the conspiracy theory guy in Alaska, Will trying to fuck Mike, and that's only half of it. The point is, there is so much that goes on in a single episode that turning the whole season into a movie simply wouldn't work. The story is consistently being pushed forward, and these long-ass episodes fly by and leave me wanting even more. Now let's compare that to a Disney Plus show like Hawkeye. Hawkeye is the definition of a series that should have just been turned into a movie. Like, yeah, the LARPing scenes were kind of funny. Was it really necessary to include? And also, why does it just feel like an SNL skit? And seeing the day-to-day life of an Avenger like Hawkeye is kind of fun as a Reddit post, but a full 6-episode series as a selling point of Disney Plus, not so much. And I just want to make this clear before I go into too deep in some of these Marvel shows. I don't necessarily hate the MCU Disney Plus stuff. It feels nothing. I feel absolutely nothing from any of them. My level of enjoyment of their shows range from really liking them to pretty indifferent. And honestly, that's something I can't really say for the Star Wars shows. Hawkeye really is a show that I feel very, very mixed about. For example, I loved Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop. I think she kind of steals the show. And when they bring Yelena into the series, the chemistry of those two is really what kept me watching at all. I also love that they brought back Vincent DeForno's, I think that's how you say his name, his character as Kingpin from the Daredevil series on Netflix. But I hate that they teased him throughout the entire season, only to have him in the last episode for like 3 minutes and then get shot. Either have him in the show the entire time or don't have him at all. And unfortunately, that was kind of the lasting impression I had of the show. It was pretty disappointing, and it just left a bad taste in my mouth. These Marvel shows coming out as quick as they are, and the fact that they all follow under practically the exact same story structure makes it feel like they're just being pumped out of this Disney factory that has this algorithm of these cookie cutter stories and just pumping them out without any passion or care in them. Like, these shows really feel like they're just being made by robots now. I think something that could be a solution to this would be limiting the amount of shows that you have and just turning some of these into a Disney Plus original movie. Not everything needs to go onto the big screen. Like, Hawkeye would have worked perfectly as just this hour-and-a-half series, and I'm sure people would have liked it a lot more too. I know I would have. Because I think the only Marvel shows that actually deserve the title of being a show were Loki and WandaVision. I fucking loved the beginning of WandaVision, and it gave me a pretty unrealistic expectation of what some of these Disney Plus Marvel shows were going to be going forward. It actually took advantage of being a show, with each episode early on being a different era of sitcom. I loved it. It was cool seeing the small things that were off in the show just devolve into chaos, until unfortunately the ending, the last episode, is just one big CGI fight that every Marvel product is turning into now. That ending really spoils how good it was leading up to that last episode. But I really can't complain about an episode that has a spin on Malcolm in the middle. Fucking love that episode so much.
And you're not so big. Life is unfair.
That's the only episode of any of these Marvel shows that I feel like I need to go back and watch because it was just so much fun. Loki also worked for me because I think the idea of the TVA and the multiverse kind of needed a series to explain a little bit. There's also more you can just do with something like an idea like the TVA. And outside of episode 3, it didn't have a ton of filler. And it being a season was kind of validated by the fact that they are making a second season, which I'm pretty sure is the only Marvel show that's gotten a second season so far. I think Loki could be to Marvel what The Mandalorian is to Star Wars right now, where it's just a series that follows Loki through his weird journeys with the TVA, Kang, the multiverse, and the different Loki variants, similar to how The Mandalorian is kind of just about Mando's journey with Grogu through the universe. And speaking of The Mandalorian, let's talk about those Star Wars shows. The Star Wars shows have been a roller coaster of emotions. First up was The Mandalorian, and season 1 was really unexpectedly great. It was a really grounded Star Wars story that brought us new characters and kind of just flushed out their stories and the universe a little bit more. It really was the Star Wars cleanser we needed after the sequel trilogy disaster dumpster fire.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
And then season 2 came and it just raised the stakes even more. It even started bringing in fan favorite characters. The second season did have a little bit of filler, but at least when it hits, it fucking hits. Obviously, the ending of season 2 was amazing in every way, but I think some of the tense moments in the show are what stand out. When I think about season 2, I just think about that episode with Bill Burr, where Mando has to take off his helmet for the first time. The success of the show led to them announcing a shit ton more of Disney Plus Star Wars shows, and what a dumb fucking move that was. I don't want to get on my high horse here with Star Wars, but I will. There once was a time where Star Wars content didn't come out as much as it does now. It was much more limited, and characters with brief moments in the movies had a little bit mystery to them. Back when, if there was Star Wars content coming out, it was a big deal. And now we're flooded with way too much Star Wars content where it doesn't really have that special feeling like it used to. Like, who the fuck said, you know what I really want, what we need right now? We need a Boba Fett show. In my opinion, a character like Boba Fett is way cooler when he isn't elaborated on. I didn't need to know that much about his origin story. He was just a cool bounty hunter who did the job and went on with life. That's it. But then the stupid Boba Fett show comes out and it shows you his backstory and shows you how much of a fucking loser he is.
Like a panther. Yes.
The only redeeming part of this pointless show is when the Mandalorian hijacks an episode mid-season. I really disliked the show. It felt so cheap, like no one gave a shit about what was going on in it. And it made me really nervous about the show that I was actually excited for that would follow it up with the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, which ranged from some of the worst content that I've ever seen to being a really good complimentary piece to my favorite Star Wars movie. It's so frustrating thinking about the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, mainly because it had some laughably bad moments in it early on, but it really wrapped around in an incredible ending. Watching Vader get his helmet sliced open and hearing the voice of Vader mixed in with Anakin cutting back and forth as he tells Obi-Wan that it wasn't his fault and that Anakin is dead, Vader is what remains. It was really just heartbreaking. It almost makes you forget that Leia was running away from the Three Stooges a couple episodes ago. It falls into the same flaws that I'm seeing with pretty much all of these Disney Plus shows, and it's that it just should have been a movie. If I was in charge of the Star Wars output on Disney Plus, I would scale things back completely. I would have The Mandalorian be the heart of Star Wars content on the service. Have it be the only live action show. That way it kind of gets like the praise and that special feeling of being the Star Wars product as at the moment. And then when that's starting to wind down towards the end of the series and its final season, I think that's when you transition into an Ahsoka live action show. The only other Star Wars content I would have going on at this time is really anything animation. Animated Star Wars content has been blowing away live action Star Wars content for over a decade now. I really loved how the Clone Wars ended. I really enjoyed The Bad Batch, and also I'm very excited for this little Star Wars Jedi Stories series they have coming up. That way Star Wars can kind of focus on putting something out that's truly fantastic and not this shotgun approach where throw everything at the wall, see what sticks. As you can tell, I really do have a complicated relationship with Disney Plus. It's just so frustrating seeing some of my favorite franchises get watered down. Meanwhile, on other streaming platforms, they're releasing some of like the best content ever. But hey, what do I know? I'm still a fucking clown who has been subscribed to Disney Plus since day one, and I'm pretty sure they're jacking up my price in a couple months here. Hooray. But if you would like to see some more content from me, make sure to smash that like and subscribe button, and comment to let me know what you think of Disney Plus's Marvel and Star Wars shows. Maybe you like them. Maybe you like them a lot more than me. In that case, I'm happy for you. It's definitely a time, if you want more content, it's definitely the perfect time for that. But until then, I will see you in the next video. And fuck you, Bob Chapek.